let us go to the book of Jude. It's easy to find. You go to Revelation in the very back, and then you go back one book. And it's one of those little one-chapter books. And I have to tell you, I was tempted to just skip Jude after we spent all that time in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. And we learned about what was going on in Asia Minor and what was going on with the Gnostics. And then I repented, because Jude is a very important book. Now, there's some things in Jude that make me uncomfortable. And they might make you uncomfortable too, and that's okay to be uncomfortable. It is in your text. We will deal with what's going on in the book of Jude. Now, Jude, short for Judas, a very, very common name in the New Testament. And the question we have is, well, who is Jude? Well, Jude tells us he is a servant of Jesus Christ and the brother of James. Okay, that's interesting. Right? We know of one Jude who is the brother of James. We know that because 2 Gospels list the brothers of Jesus. One of whom is James. And then there's Judas. And then they give some unnamed sisters. The sisters never give names. Okay? But these are from the family that Jesus was raised in. Now, James we know about. There's a book in your New Testament called James. Right? We haven't studied James together. James, very, very Jewish book. Our friend Martin Luther, when he was translating the Bible from Latin into German, left out the book of Jude. He called it the Apostle of Straw, the Epistle of Straw, the letter of straw, which has no meaning, no substance. Well, later on, Martin Luther repented and put it in there. Because if you look at it as a very Jewish book, then it means a lot. And it's the same way with Jude. This is a very, very Jewish book. And we need to switch gears, because we're talking about the author's original intent to their original audience. And the author is Jewish, and the author's audience is very Jewish. And they're going to use some examples and some things from Scripture that we don't even consider Scripture to make points. But we can determine what their intent was, and then we can make application. So, Jude, a brother of Jesus. Now, he didn't call himself a brother of Jesus, right? That would be a little arrogant in this situation. He didn't mind saying, I'm a brother of James, but I'm a servant of Jesus. Okay, Jude, verse 1. He said, Jude, a servant of Jesus Christ, the brother of James, to those who have been called, who are loved by God the Father and kept by Jesus Christ. Mercy and peace and love be yours in abundance. Sounds very familiar so far, right? Dear friends, although I was, by the way, he's called them friends. We talked a lot about that in the Gospel, the letters that John wrote, right? What he meant by friends. Dear friends, although I was very eager to write to you about the salvation we share, I felt I had to write and urge you to contend for the faith that God has once and for all entrusted to the saints. He said, I sat down, I was wanting to write a letter to you. And we talked about how big of a deal it was to write a letter. Right? How expensive it was, and how you couldn't just, slap a stamp on it. I have really enjoyed all of the cards you guys have sent. And I've got them from all over the country. And very encouraging, but 44 cents? It's getting kind of expensive, right? But you didn't even have that option here. Okay, so I wanted to write a letter. And I wanted to write a letter to you about the salvation that we share. Now, we've talked a lot about that word salvation. Literally means to be made whole, to be made complete. He said, I wanted to talk to you about the way that God is making us whole, making us complete. The way that He's at work. And I don't know what that would have meant to Jude. Maybe he would have talked about how the fact that he's learned to love Gentiles and to accept Gentiles. That God has been at work in their life, and now they can go beyond just their Jewish Jewish background, and they can love and accept Gentiles. That would be salvation. That would be being made whole. He said, I really wanted to write to you about the salvation that we share. But something else has come up. And if you look at it again, he said, I had to write and urge you to contend for the faith that God has once and for all entrusted to the saints. I want you to contend for something. So last time you used that word, contend. When you contend for something, you are at odds with somebody. You are in a battle. You are standing your ground against some attack, or you are advancing your cause. You are contending. He said, the faith that was once and for all given to the saints, I want you to fight for that. Wow. Wow. Now, I don't know how many pastors have told you to fight. I don't know how many letters that you've got that said, I want you to fight. But that's what Jude is saying. He's saying, I need to urge you to fight for something. For the faith once and for all set down for the saints. Now that's very important. Because if you have this idea that this is an ongoing revelation, that this is something that, you know, as the years go by, we're learning more and adding that to our faith, he said, no. This is past perfect, once and for all, handed down to the saints. There is somebody attacking faith in Jesus. And he said, I want you to contend with him. Now, guess who we get to contend with in the book of Jude? Is it the pagan world that's attacking the belief in Jesus? No, it's not. Is it some other religion that's attacking the faith in Jesus? No, it's not. Guess who you get to contend with in the book of Jude? The Christian religious leaders. Wow. He goes on and says, for certain men whose condemnation was written about long ago have secretly slipped in among you. They are godless men who change the grace of our God into a license for immorality, and deny Jesus Christ, our only sovereign and Lord. This sounds a lot like the Gnostic group, isn't it? This is what John was writing about. So there's some people who came in here and they're changing some things about Jesus. They're changing some ideas about Jesus. We don't know if these are Gnostics. We do know that these people have changed the ideas about Jesus enough that they live a life that's immoral, saying that's okay for them to do. Now, we're going to read some things in Jude that aren't very pretty. Some things that are going on. Blemishes on their love feast. People who are taking advantage of other people. These are Christian religious leaders. And Jude says, I want you to stand up and fight. Wow. Wow. Now, if that doesn't interest you, get your interest up in the book of Jude. I don't know what will. Okay? Because there are some people amongst those believers who are teaching some things about Jesus that somehow make it possible for them to be above sin. He said they've taken this idea of grace and they've allowed it to be a license for immorality. But it's all okay. It's all okay. And Jesus said, I want you to fight them. I want you to fight them. Okay? We are going to spend some time in Jude talking about what is going on and why Jude is so adamant against this. And we're going to find that this pattern repeats itself in history over and over and over again. That we give religious leaders the reins, and somehow or another they come up different than everybody else, and things that are sins for everybody else aren't sins for them. And they end up doing some really, really weird stuff. And this is part of human sinful nature, and part that we need to guard against. And as disciples, we have classes that we make the clergy go through. Because you just need to be aware of this. Because people in religious leader positions have power that they can misuse. And we've seen it happen and destroy people. And Jesus died. Jesus died for every one of us to be made whole. And for religious leaders to use that power to destroy with the work that Jesus has done it's just tragic. Tragic. So we're going to look at what Jude said these people are doing, and we're going to look at how to contend with them. And we're going to ask ourselves tough questions like, hey, do we stand up? Do we ask religious leaders, do you think you're special? Do you think that what you preach does not apply to you? Jesus has done amazing things. And we have spent all kinds of energy and effort downplaying what Jesus has done for us. We as disciples have decided every week we're going to take the Lord's Supper, bring it all back, to come back to the commonness of that table, to remember the sacrifice of Jesus, to remember that we are all one in Jesus, that we are all forgiven, that nobody is over anybody, that nobody is more saved than anybody else, that there's nobody that doesn't need that sacrifice. So every week we take it. And sometimes we wonder if it gets old. Sometimes we wonder, are we losing the meaning? Well, after you read the book of Jude, it won't get old. It will bring it back to you that we all are on the same level ground at the foot of the cross. We all need that sacrifice. And because of that, Jesus made that sacrifice.